The blandest stage of the grandest stage. Every WrestleMania, good or bad, needs a climax, and it needs a deepest depth. While last week we took a look at the greatest match to grace the ring of every WrestleMania over the last 39 years, this week we take a look at the more insidious side of that coin. There's 4 decades of trash to sift through here, and by God, we did it for you. I'm Tempest, hailing from partsFUNknown, and this is the worst match from every WrestleMania. And before we get on with this list, please make sure that you like this video, subscribe, and enable notifications so you never miss a fun list just like it, and make sure that you stick around to the end to see a clip from the latest episode of Survival Series. WrestleMania 1, King Kong Bundy vs. SD Jones. Most of WrestleMania 1 is an MSG house show broadcast to the world, best exemplified by just a regular old squash match. A squash match that they tried to tell us was 9 seconds, but was nearly 3 times that long. And really, what could make a match worse than a lie? WrestleMania 2, Roddy Piper vs. Mr. T. If there is one thing I hate in wrestling, it is worked shoot sports. MMA, boxing, doesn't matter. Odds are I'll hate it. A boxing match ending in DQ after a massive waste of time? All the way off. WrestleMania 3, Hillbilly Jim, Little Beaver, and the Haiti Kid vs. King Kong Bundy, Little Tokyo, and Lord Littlebrook. When Gorilla Monsoon called Hogan and Andre the irresistible force meeting the immovable object, I am fairly certain that he got his notes mixed up and was actually talking about Little Beaver and King Kong Bundy. From main event of Mania 2 to this. Poor Bundy. WrestleMania 4, Hulk Hogan vs. Andre the Giant. Hogan vs. Andre from Mania 3 may have had the iconic status to save it from being the worst match of the show, but this rematch the following year had no such status. Just the resistible force meeting the immobile object. WrestleMania 5, the Bushwhackers vs. the Fabulous Rougeaus. There is a real argument to be made that this is the single worst WrestleMania wrestling match of all time. Just 4 bumbling fools pissing about in a 9-minute comedy match that skimps out on the comedy. The Bushwhackers have more 5-star matches than Kurt Angle. I'm just gonna let that marinate for a bit. WrestleMania 6, Big Boss Man vs. Akeem. After a pre-match beatdown from Ted DiBiase on the large man in charge, Boss Man and Akeem had a 109-second match that consisted entirely of clubbing blows, Irish whips, and a Boss Man slam. That's right, Boss Man got the beatdown and won in less than 2 minutes. Who da man indeed. WrestleMania 7, Jake Roberts vs. Rick Martel. Nothing says a big blow-off quite like a blindfold match. Just men pretending to be blind stumbling around for 8 minutes. And I say pretending because look at those eye holes. I'm the eye hole man, give me those eye holes. WrestleMania 8, Hulk Hogan vs. Sid Justice. This is the worst WrestleMania main event and I'm tired of pretending it's not. Ends in DQ, Shango misses his cue, Hogan leaving was due, and 5 more years till Sid does a poo. WrestleMania 9, The Undertaker vs. Giant Gonzalez. Maybe the most important match on this list, because you can tell that not a ton of thought was actually put into this or its finish, and all it would have taken was a slightly different outcome to completely alter the history of WrestleMania. Gonzalez just pins Taker? No streak. But even in that imaginary world, I'm sure this match would have still been just as bad. WrestleMania 10, Yokozuna vs. Lex Luger. You know, I think this might be the worst WrestleMania follow-up a Royal Rumble winner has ever received. Imagine a Rumble winner today getting their title match in the middle of Mania, having a horrible match, and then losing by DQ thanks to special referee shenanigans. WrestleMania 11, The Undertaker vs. King Kong Bundy. The Undertaker wins this match with a clothesline, and the only memorable thing about this match is the fact that for some reason the Undertaker's urn has grown 3 sizes, and then Papa Shango alerts everyone that he's gonna melt it down into a chain. 1995 was a bad year, everyone. WrestleMania 12, The Ultimate Warrior vs. Hunter Hearst Helmsley. I like to think that a young Hunter Hearst Helmsley witnessed The Ultimate Warrior completely bury him and his finish at WrestleMania 12 and thought, hey, I could do that. This is a 1.5-minute squash that totally buried the guy who was penciled in to win King of the Ring at the time. Stupid. WrestleMania 13, The Undertaker vs. Sid. WrestleMania 14, the Tag Team Battle Royal. This is the most nonsense a nonsense Battle Royal has ever been, and that includes the Reverse Battle Royal. It's a cluster. Half the people in it don't even know the rules. What a way to open your biggest show. WrestleMania 15, The Undertaker vs. the Big Boss Man. This match moves along at the pace of Continental Drift and ends with a literal murder as they cut to Michael Cole to say, and now for something completely different. I'm sorry, Michael, are you not distracted by the corpse swinging in front of you? WrestleMania 2000, The Cat vs. Terry Runnels. I mean, it's not their fault, but my god. Val Venus in all his stupid-ass glory refereeing the one and only one-on-one match at WrestleMania between 2 non-wrestlers in a cat fight, with Moolah and Mae Young in each corner. How was WrestleMania the worst show of the year in WWE's best year? WrestleMania X7, Right to Censor vs. Taz and the APA. When I showed WrestleMania X7 to my friends, we got to this match and they looked at me and said, "This is the best WrestleMania?" A damning indictment, but I told them to let it play out. WrestleMania 18, Maven vs. Goldust. It would have been a nice success story if Tough Enough winner and future YouTuber Maven had a classic WrestleMania match. Man, it would have been nice. WrestleMania 19, The Undertaker vs. Big Show and A-Train. This match isn't nearly as bad as others on this list due to Mania 19 being superb, Dan Layton, you know what you did, but even the best Mania needs a worse match. Taker takes down Big Show riding A-Train with the help of everyone's favorite answer to a trivia question, Nathan Jones, even though Jones wasn't in the match, and this should have been a DQ. The streak should have ended here. Justice for A-Train. WrestleMania 20, Goldberg vs. Brock Lesnar. I mean, if there was ever a crowd not to have this match in front of, this would be the one. A Madison Square Garden WrestleMania crowd that were smarter than the average bear were not going to be receptive to the match between two dudes that had both given their notice. WrestleMania 21, Big Show vs. Akibono. You know when I said I hated work shoot fighting for WrestleMania 2, I did forget that there would be another example of this to come, and one where I had to spend the match looking at the Big Show's big dimply ass. WrestleMania 22, The Boogeyman vs. Booker T and Sharmell. I mean, the match is exactly what it says on the can. Sharmell of Jenna vs. Sharmell fame wrestling a match at WrestleMania against the Boogeyman. Booker T is world champion 3 months later, by the way. Just thought I'd point that out. WrestleMania 23, The Great Khali vs. Kane. I don't know what WWE creative got out of booking The Great Khali vs. Kane at WrestleMania, but it should have been 3 to 5 years. And then these f***ers saw this, and over multiple years says, yeah, we can run that back 8 more times! WrestleMania 24, Beth Phoenix and Melina vs. Maria and Ashley. When the biggest stars of this WrestleMania match are the commentator knocking out the comedy goofball and then Snoop Dogg knocking out the comedy goofball, it kinda makes sense that the lights went out halfway through the match. I wouldn't want to see this either. WrestleMania 25, the Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal. You know, there really was a good reason the top women's stars of yesteryear passed on this match, and it might have had something to do with no one getting an entrance and then the match being won by a man. Just a hunch. WrestleMania 26, Bret Hart vs. Mr. McMahon. It is truly astonishing how WWE managed to get every aspect of this match wrong. Could have just been Bret beating the tar out of Vince for a minute, putting him in the sharpshooter, everyone cheers. Instead, Vince pays off Bret's family and Bret just says, JK, no you didn't, and beats Vince for an hour. Appalling. WrestleMania 27, Michael Cole vs. Jerry Lawler. For as much as WWE f***ed up Bret and Vince, at least they had Bret win. Why am I doing this list again? WrestleMania 28, Sheamus vs. Daniel Bryan. Haha, you silly little internet fans, you shouldn't have paid to see your world champion at WrestleMania. We've got your money now! It all worked out for Daniel Bryan, but f*** me running. My best friend turned off Mania and didn't watch wrestling for 2 years after this. WrestleMania 29, Triple H vs. Brock Lesnar. Why does Triple H think he's a good big match wrestler? Why, after all those years of horrible WrestleMania matches, did he still insist on having the longest match of the show? And why the f*** did Triple H come out of retirement for a goddamn retirement match? WrestleMania 30, AJ Lee versus The World. On one hand, I'm glad all the women of WWE got a WrestleMania payday. But on the other hand, booking every woman on your roster to all fight at once immediately after the most shocking match in WrestleMania history,
not a great plan.
WrestleMania 31, the Bella Twins vs. AJ Lee and Paige. Again, an example of a perfectly adequate match on an excellent show, but for this to be the follow-up of the 2014 feuds of AJ Lee and Paige and Nikki and Brie Bella kinda shows why a women's evolution was sorely needed. WrestleMania 32, Triple H vs. Roman Reigns. I don't know if there has ever been a more self-indulgent and less self-aware match in WrestleMania history than this one. Main event heel Triple H, brought to the ring by a never-ending soliloquy by Stephanie McMahon, beaten by babyface Roman Reigns in a half-hour match. Boo, hiss, tomato, tomato, tomato. WrestleMania 33, Bray Wyatt vs. Randy Orton. Bray Wyatt deserved better than this match, and to think that the WWE title went from John Cena vs. AJ Styles levels of awesomeness to this maggot on the mat bullshit in 2 months flat is one of the most aggressive 180s in WWE history. WrestleMania 34, Brock Lesnar vs. Roman Reigns. Having watched this back, it is so much worse than I remember it being. This is Beach Ball Mania, which is what happens when you take the 50% of this match that people liked and said, F you, he's leaving and he hates you. This is the last of 4 WrestleMania main events to feature on this list, and is possibly the most frustrating. WrestleMania 35, Baron Corbin vs. Kurt Angle. This is not a list that necessitates an AEW comparison, but if you will indulge me, you see how AEW has treated Sting in his retirement match from last night? You know, picking his opponent, ending his career on his terms. Pretty much perfect, right? Now you see why fans might still be a little bit salty even 5 years later that this was how WWE chose to say goodbye to Kurt Angle. Night and day. WrestleMania 36, Elias versus King Corbin. When we all tuned in to WrestleMania 36 to try and distract ourselves from the horrors of the world around us, and then we had to watch Elias and King Corbin wrestle to abject silence, it became a little bit more clear just how bleak the next 18 months were going to be. WrestleMania 37, The Fiend versus Randy Orton. The box-like structure, the melting Alexa Bliss, The Fiend's burns being magicked away, leaving us all to wonder what the point of all of this was in the first place. It is all just so horrible. And when Randy's trying to slip and slide his way to the ring, it's probably a good indication that we should all be as mentally checked out as he was. WrestleMania 38, Mr. McMahon versus Pat McAfee. Any potential comedy to be drawn from this match or the stunner that followed has unfortunately been destroyed by the information that has come to light since. So just a big old double bird to you, Vince. Hope you rot. And WrestleMania 39, Austin Theory versus John Cena. I mean, John Cena told us that even if Austin Theory beat him, it wouldn't mean anything because Theory sucked, and honestly, I can't argue with him. The proof has been in the pudding for the last 12 months every time Theory has made us all remember when he had the worst match of one of the best WrestleManias of all time. And that's our list. Make sure, of course, that you like this video, subscribe, and enable notifications to always on so you never miss a list just like it, and check out this clip from this week's Survival Series.
WrestleMania appearance. It's the Boneyard match.
Why are you the way that you are?
It's Undertaker defeating AJ Styles and then killing Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows so hard they turned up in another promotion.
Why can I not remember his name?
So he retired in